Hi everyone, I'm Johanna Carrio, a UPOU Masters in Information Systems student. And today we will be talking about one of the most controversial type of ethical issue in the digital world, even in our day-to-day lives. And this is the freedom of expression. Some believe that unrestricted freedom of expression is vital for democracy and innovation. Others argue that certain type of speech, like hate speech or misinformation, should be controlled to protect public safety. Where do you think the balance should be? And who should decide? Sounds interesting, right? Want to hear more? Stay tuned. So, what is freedom of expression? Freedom of expression is the right to express one's thoughts, opinions, and ideas without the fear of censorship, restriction, or punishment. It encompasses speech, writing, art, and other forms of communication, but it may be limited to prevent harm, such as incitement to violence or hate speech. In relation to the digital world, it is the same concept, but it involves platforms like social media, blogs, and forums, enabling global communication. However, it faces challenges like content moderation, government surveillance, cyberbullying, and misinformation, which can limit or complicate its practice. Today, we will hear different insights and ideas from various professionals in multiple industries. And let's see how we'll be able to answer the issue and freedom of expression in our modern, digital centric generation. Interestingly enough, interviewing these people in itself is already us practicing freedom of expression, isn't it? Let's hear from our medical, IT, and administrative professionals as how they answer this question. Freedom of speech. Where do you think the balance should be and who should decide?
At its essence, freedom is an ideology practiced in the context of relations. Restricted freedom can be seen as enslavement, while unbridled freedom can be seen as tyranny. There would always be a ceiling to pushing boundaries to be challenged and having a space to be able to ask questions, use critical thinking, and encourage dialogue without fear of unequal suppression or heavy retribution is important in feeling free. However, we also need to acknowledge that discourse can encourage actions and consequences. Therefore, freedom also requires acknowledgement of responsibility over consequences. Each individual has the responsibility to develop their own morality, their sense of responsibility and discipline. Both parties should do freedom in the context of common good so that we will be able to have freedom for everybody. The balance lies on the shared values, understanding, and tolerance of each individual.
I think there's always been an argument for freedom of expression or freedom of speech, and also an argument for the need of moderation and the need of governance. It's almost like one is right and the other one has to therefore be wrong. But perhaps that's quite an old-fashioned way to think about that argument. Both sides are technically correct. They both make very valid points, especially in today's society where I think it's even more important that we have the ability to express oneself and that we are not suppressed in our ability to express ourselves. It's a very valid argument for both sides, especially in a democratic society. You have to be able to protect your citizens' ability to express themselves, and also you need to be able to protect your citizens from themselves, from misinformation, and how, especially in how quickly it spreads. First, we need to define what actually hate speech is and what insightful speech is. And then maybe perhaps we can look into being able to moderate it. I think for me personally, it all comes down to it all comes down to society. It needs to start there. We've lost the art of being able to stop and think before we say things. We kind of act more on impulse nowadays, especially with today's fast-paced society. In conclusion, then, yes, free speech is important, but also moderation is important.
Hi, my name is Janella. In regards to the question, that is actually a very difficult question as freedom of speech is such a very complex notion. Where I am right now here in America, freedom of speech, that is our right. We can express whatever we want, whether it be a hate speech or not. And so once you try to restrict freedom of speech, it's not freedom of speech anymore. So I believe that this is also a very cultural thing, because if I do compare the time that I was in the Philippines, there are certain things that we can't say just out in the public, and that is because of the cultural aspect of it. But here in America, if I do compare it, there's more freedom in actually expressing what we want and expressing our beliefs and ideas. And so I believe the balance really lies in the person, in their upbringing, or where they are in their life right now. And so I believe that rather than being moderated to not say certain things, I believe it's way better if people had the moral capability to just not share something hateful or something that would hurt other people. And I don't think the government can just restrict us to do. I don't believe on forcing other people not to say stuff just because we don't have the same ideals. And so I really appreciate the notion of having the freedom of speech, as it encourages me to say what I think or what I feel is right. But at the same time, I should also have the knowledge and the insight to know that what I'm saying is actually productive versus being hurtful.
The balance between freedom of expression and protecting public safety is definitely a complex issue. Now, a reasonable balance, I would say, would definitely involve safeguarding free expression, all while setting clear, narrow limits on speech that directly incites violence or endangers the public. Now, who should decide? Ideally, decisions should be made by a combination of legal frameworks, democratic institutions, and independent courts, rather than by any single individual or group. Now, ultimately, the goal should always be to maintain a free exchange of ideas while minimizing harm to individuals and society.
I do believe that unrestricted freedom of expression is essential for democracy and innovation. We have fought for this freedom for a long time, and censorship, disinformation, and media regulation should not be an option anymore. We live in a world today that advanced technology has been a great use to spot misinformation, and I believe that this should not be a hindrance when it comes to freedom of expression, because at the end of the day, we as consumers of this information could fact check everything on the internet or call out people who are promoting hate speech or bullying or putting someone in danger. And all of these are documented or has digital footprints that can be used against them once proven that it is against the law.
The challenge of balancing the freedom of expression and moderating harmful speech is a complex issue. In my opinion, the ideal balance is to permit freedom of expression as long as it does not cause any harm to others. It should be a collective effort of the government, the companies, um, civil society, and experts. For me, also, these require robust, clear guidelines, accountability for enforcement, and the transparency in decision making processes.
Democracy springs forth from the ability of the people to vote and to speak their own truths. And this kind of governance is only plausible with the freedom to practice our rights as people. This, of course, includes freedom of speech. In this contemporary time, most people in different countries are given unrestricted autonomy to do what is and to speak what should be. However, with this liberty, people tend to be exploitative of this privilege by loitering around social media and even in real life, using words as a weapon instead of medium of peace and order within the community. I still believe that the government should provide directives that should serve as guidelines in making communication in general safe and truly useful in a way that it does not compromise the vulnerable people. This regulation should also bring an equilibrium or balance in the information that should be publicated in whatever manner possible. Hopefully, if this would be enacted by the government, it would make or it would bring about a more sensible and responsible censorship by the citizens of the country, and it would allow everyone to be able to speak their minds safely and more responsibly.
In my opinion, nowadays, freedom of speech helps promote participation and provides a voice to those marginalized sectors in our country today. This could also help our leaders promulgate laws essential in keeping our country at peace and order. However, we cannot deny the fact that this freedom constitutes to misinformation, especially those who do not see the real value of this democratic intention. Thus, I believe personally that everyone should be really held responsible of the information they disclose, may it be in the online and offline community. There should be amendments, if possible, to existing laws that would troubleshoot the current flaws and holes that our country is experiencing when it comes to proper information dissemination.
It is crucial for everyone to have the right to express their thoughts and ideas as this drives democracy and progress. I think the intervention of some entities are a good help to determine it. Firstly, the social media platforms. They need a clear policies of what kind of speech is acceptable or not. Second is the fact checkers. These are the independent organizations that verify whether the information in the post is true or false. Third is the government. While they should make the rules to protect the speech, they should also stop harmful speech that hurts people or society. Fourth are the experts. For specific topics like health or science, specialists can determine if the post is misleading or wrong. And lastly, the public. While the public has the freedom, they can also report posts they think are harmful or false.
Thank you to all the professionals who shared with us their perspective about this ethical issue. So, in general, from what we heard from them, is that freedom of expression is very important as we all value our democratic society. It is a way for us to share our opinions. Here's what I have concluded from their answers. We should have personal discernment and shared responsibility in what we share and consume online. The interviewees emphasized a shared responsibility between individuals, government, and other entities in balancing freedom of speech. Many agreed that while unrestricted freedom of speech is crucial for democracy, it must coexist with safeguards against harm, such as hate speech and misinformation. So there are actually 3 key points that I want to highlight from the interviewees' answers. First of which is the individual responsibility. Some of the participants stressed the importance of personal accountability. They believe that individuals must handle their freedom of expression responsibly, fact-check information, and avoid spreading false and harmful narratives. Second key point is define boundaries. So some of the participants also highlighted that the need for limit of speech that causes harm, such as hate speech and misinformation, ensuring public safety without undermining democratic rights. And last key point is the government and collaborative efforts. So some of the interviewees suggested a collaborative approach where government, organization, and the public create policies, enforce laws, and provide tools like fact checkers to maintain the balance between freedom and safety. So in conclusion, freedom of speech is vital for innovation and democracy, but requires shared responsibility to prevent harm. This balance demands a collaborative framework where individuals practice accountability, government enforce supportive laws, and entities provide oversight. Through mutual efforts, freedom of expression can thrive while ensuring public safety and trust online.